Perfect. So as Mary mentioned before, Faces of Hope does see the domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, elder abuse, and stalking. And we've actually added human trafficking to that as well, just because we are definitely seeing an uptick in that. And we know that that is just as crucial. So before I start talking a lot, I want to show you a quick video.
I think we all go into relationships feeling like we are going to have this happily ever after. And unfortunately, statistics show that that's not always the case. We all deserve to be loved and to be safe and to be treated with equality. But when it isn't going right, there's a place for help. Here at Faces of Hope, we offer one-stop wraparound triage services for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, elder abuse, child abuse, sex trafficking, and stalking. Last year, Faces of Hope saw 2,400 men, women, and children. The numbers are increasing, not because there's more abuse, but because they're feeling like they are safe and they can come out. We have on average about 18 people a day. That's every 11 minutes, somebody is coming in here for support services. More people are coming in for crisis counseling because suicidal ideation is way up. We also offer legal services, and people have a lot of questions about divorce, custody. We also have started a new case management program where people have a lot of questions. They're concerned about getting a job, but what do they do with daycare? And so with our case managers, they're helping them find housing, and they're helping them access more resources that we have in this great community. People ask me, how do you do what you do every single day? And it's hard. I mean, we have to decompartmentalize a lot of the abuse and trauma that we see, but we also get to see hope in their eyes, and we get to see that they're getting their life back together. We had one woman come to Faces, and she said, part of the control that my partner puts on me is I haven't been clothes shopping in over 9 years. We took her to Hope's Closet, and she said, this is almost overwhelming. The first thing she did was we gave her a brand new package, of just Hanes underwear from the store. And she opened it up and she smelled this fresh package of underwear and she just cried. And she said, I didn't ever think I'd see the day where I'd own my own package of new underwear that aren't hanging by a thread. That $3 package of underwear was all this lady needed to give her a little bit of dignity back. We all have the right to be loved and to be safe and to be treated with equality. And when that doesn't happen, that's where Faces steps in, and that's where we provide hope and healing. I know that the work that we're doing is making a difference, and I know that we're bringing hope to so many.
Okay, so I think you all know who experiences abuse, but it really does impact all of us. If the statistics show that if 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in their lifetime will experience some type of abuse, that means that it's affecting either a family member, ourselves, our neighbor, our coworker. And so that part, I think, when, as we talk about what we do to help the community, I think people, they don't like to talk about it. It's one of those things that makes people uncomfortable. And so part of that is we are trying to change that. We're trying to change the stigma as we talk about abuse, that it affects everyone. Last year, Ada County Dispatch reports that they received 4,432 emergency calls related to domestic violence, sexual assault, or child abuse. And so it happens right here in Ada County, as hard as it is, that we have to admit that it happens here in our own community. So the mission for Faces of Hope is that we want to reduce victimization with a safety net of services. So basically what that's saying is that through one door, people can come receive services, and they're going to get wraparound support from all of our partners. I think one thing that a lot of people ask is, do I have to report to law enforcement? I notice BPD is in your center. Unless it's related to child abuse or vulnerable adults, you do not have to report to law enforcement. I don't have to report to law enforcement, but if I'm concerned about a vulnerable adult or there's child abuse, I absolutely must report. So what makes us unique in the Valley? We have amazing partners, and we are great partners with the WCA. We collaborate with our partners over at Nampa Family Justice Center. But one thing that sets us apart is that we have a lot of partners in our building, so that when somebody needs support, maybe with law enforcement, or they're looking for an attorney, or they have medical questions, we're able to get our partners in the building and bring them to talk to a client. The other thing we do is we want to take care of your basic needs, your legal and your safety needs, educational, emotional, medical needs, all of that, because we know that a lot of times people will go back to their abuser. It takes 7 times to leave your abuser. And that's because we're all worried about our basic needs. And if you think about what happened during COVID, and I can't wait for one day that's like a big distant memory. But during COVID, a lot of people were afraid to leave the abuser. They were either concerned that they would be homeless, they felt like their children's lives were already disrupted, and they didn't want to disrupt it even more. They were afraid of getting COVID, that whole unknown. And so they stayed with their abuser longer than we've seen in history, for a long time. The other part is that a lot of times people will get like a reprieve from some of the emotional and physical abuse because that abuser is going to work or going somewhere throughout the day where they're not isolated in the same home together. But when we were in COVID, we were all together all the time. And those of us who are in healthy relationships, even those sometimes you think, man, we've been together a really long time. I need a walk. I need a break. During COVID, that was harder. And so we saw an increase in suicidal ideation, and we saw a lot of people enduring just harder and harder abuse. So let me talk a little bit about the safety. We do have the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. We have Boise Police Department, and we also have the prosecuting attorney right here at our center. The other amazing thing that we got just about 9 months ago is we got the adult protection here as well. And so we've had a wonderful opportunity when we've had our vulnerable adults that are 55 and older who need support. We've actually been able to connect them quickly with adult protection. The next one, a lot of people have legal questions, and we do have the University of Idaho and their third-year law students that are teaching, or third-year law students are learning how to do protection orders, divorce, custody, financial abuse.
Somebody with neat handwriting.
Uh-oh. Is that on you?
Where are you going?
I just put that in the chat for everybody to mute. Oops.
No, that's okay. Okay. Not only do we have the University of Idaho third-year law students that are going in and representing people, but we also have an attorney at FACES who can just answer legal questions. And so if you have a client who has questions but isn't sure that they can afford a lawyer, they can come right to FACES, because all of these services are free. And maybe they're not even sure if it's something that a lawyer needs to have to help them with, but they just want to ask questions. That's available as well. The next thing we offer is the educational support. So a lot of these support groups happen after hours, and some happen during hours. We want to make sure that we can help those that are maybe working or those where it's harder to get out during the day. So we try to provide things at multiple times throughout the day. But we learned that a lot of our clients are very worried that if they have pressed charges or if law enforcement is involved, they get really nervous about what that court experience is going to look like. So we provide a class called Going to Court with Confidence, and that's taught by a social worker. And she's not feeding them answers. She's not talking to them about their actual legal case. She's talking to them about their fears and about the anxiety that they're facing, and is teaching them techniques, deep breathing, things like that, so that they are ready to go to court and they're not as scared. She's also going to let them go to the courthouse and just kind of get an idea for what it looks and feels like. That really takes a lot of the stress off. We have a self-defense class that we teach every once in a while, but one lady said, I know how to break fingers. I know where to, hit and gouge. But what if I want to stay in the home? What if we have a relationship that I don't want, I don't want to break bones. I just want to know how to de-escalate. And so that's when we decided to offer a de-escalation class to really talk to them about ways that you can keep yourself safe and that you can keep your voices down and not have it escalate to so much anger. We also learned that teens do not love to come to FACES because they feel like all eyes are on them and everybody knows that they are going to a victim center. And so we actually partnered with a Discovery Center and started offering the support group there. Well, it took off like crazy. And we had teens telling their friends, teens that just started to come to this support group. And so now we have about 18 teens that come, and they have one thing in common, and that's they experienced child abuse, sexual abuse, teen dating violence. They've experienced some type of abuse in their lifetime, and so they find support with one another. The empowerment class is a class that is court ordered for one, but you don't have to have a court order to go, but it actually talks to people who have been abused about what abuse does to their health, how it affects their family, talks to them about resources in the community, and really just gives them some support. And that's taught by a victim witness coordinator who understands the court system if they have questions, but also understands what it does to the body physically and mentally. And then the last two classes, yoga, we find that trauma-informed yoga is very therapeutic. It's taught by a yoga certified counselor who's also certified in trauma. And we find that a lot of people are even bringing their own children to come to our trauma-informed yoga. And then lastly, with safety planning, we want to meet our clients where they're at, whether they're going to stay with the person, they need to leave, but they're not ready yet, or they've already left. We're going to help them safety plan so that we give them tools so that they feel safe where they are at that moment. One unique thing about Faces of Hope is that we have set the gold standard in medical care, and we work with both hospitals who work hand in hand. St. Luke's and St. Alphonsus both have nurses that are trained in forensic medical science, where they collect the evidence from rape kits. They also collect evidence for domestic violence and elder abuse kits. They're measuring bruises. They're taking all the medical evidence and then giving it to law enforcement. We also have a doctor and a nurse practitioner on site, so you can be seen at FACES medically for follow-up visits Monday through Friday, which is really exciting because it used to only be 2 days a week. And not only do they talk about their medical, their physical body concerns, but they are also talking to them about the importance of mental health, because we know that the bones and the bruises are going to heal, but it's that emotional support that will that can last a lifetime if it's not addressed. The emotional support, I touched on it a little bit with our support groups, but we also have 4 crisis counselors that are master level crisis counselors, and they also have been trained in trauma techniques. There's a way that our brain, when we experience abuse, our brain cannot very easily put it in the right part of our brains. And so our crisis counselors are really good at helping our clients put it in the right part of the brain so that it's not always triggering and not always something that brings heightened emotion when they hear a song or they have a smell that they connect with the violence, where we often see triggers. So basic needs is really crucial as we help our clients care for their basic needs. We learned, especially during COVID, that basic needs are really important, and that's why people are staying with their abuser longer, because they are afraid of not being able to financially support themselves. And so we've tried to take care of that, or at least bridge the gap for a little while. You heard the story in Hope's Closet where that woman had not had clothes for 9 years, new clothes. They were all hanging by a thread or really thin. And so when people can come to Faces and pick out brand new clothes with tags, it's pretty empowering. And sometimes it's even a little bit overwhelming. There had been a woman who was 59 years old. She had been with her abuser for 30 years. And her abuser picked out the clothing for her that she was to wear. And so it was kind of a liberating but overwhelming experience when she could pick any color, pick any cut, pick the type of clothes that she wanted to, that she hadn't had that opportunity for 30 years. There was a moment where this one woman brought a friend, and she's looking in the mirror and she's putting on mascara and she's putting on eyeshadow, and she looks at her friend and she's like, I haven't looked like this since 1983. And it was one of those moments where she kind of had the same technique from 1983, the really heavy blue eyeshadow and the really rosy cheeks. But man, it just really gave her some power and some confidence that she really needed. She was actually going to court that very day to see her husband after the arrest was made. And so it was such a wonderful experience to just watch. We had a victim who was brought in by her pastor. She was a 72-year-old woman who confided in her quilters club at church that her son was financially and physically abusive. And so we were helping her get a protection order, and we were putting her in a hotel until we could get the son to move out. And what was really interesting is we walked over with her to the Winco to get some food because she was going to be in a hotel for a few days. And every employee passed by and they would say, "Hi, Amanda, how are you?" And our victim advocate looked at Amanda and said, "How does everybody know you around here?" Like, it was just very charming. And she just thought it was really cool that everybody treated Amanda, and I've changed her name, is treating Amanda so well. And Amanda looked at our advocate and said, "Because this is the only safe place I can go besides locking myself in my bedroom. So I spend a lot of time at Winco." And then that's how we realized that this woman, who was basically isolated, she owned her own home, but she was really only allowed to be in her room or be in the kitchen to cook for her son. And other than that, she spent a lot of her time at Winco just walking the halls and the aisles. And then lastly, gas has been in big demand, especially as the prices are always increasing. And so as our clients are going to and from court, going to and from Faces, accessing the resources, we do provide food and gas cards so that we can offset that burden for them for 4 to 6 weeks. We find that as we take care of them, they often start feeling empowered, because a lot of times they're afraid to use their credit card, especially if they're trying to stay away from their abuser and not let their abuser know where they're at. These food and gas cards really give them some safety, and it takes care of their basic needs. So I love numbers. I think numbers tell a big story. Whoops. Last year, we had 2,458 people walk through the doors. Now they're coming to Faces to access us multiple times, but that number just continues to rise. This year in 2022, we've actually surpassed that number. We're up 27%, and it just continues to grow. And I think So it could be because of our population growth. I think it could be because people are learning who and what we do, because Faces has always kind of been a secret. Back in 2016, when people were coming to us, they had heard about us through law enforcement or from the hospitals. We didn't want offenders to know where to go, and so we kept secret. But we had to change that because we knew that people weren't accessing this place who really truly needed it. And so that's why you see now banners around the buildings and ads on Facebook and Spotify, because we want to get the word out, because we know we have screening questions. We can keep the abuser out. We just want to make sure that we help people to come in. Last year, we provided over $1.1 million in crisis counseling work. We had over 2,000 sessions of crisis counseling that people were able to access. You can access crisis counselors for 6 to 8 weeks. You can also come the day of. If you are having just a horrible trauma experience, or you've had a trigger and you just need something, we have ER spots that day. We have learned that people are waiting typically 4 weeks to get into a counselor. Our great nonprofits have a little bit of a wait list, so we just kind of bridge that gap until you can get long-term counseling. We've also seen an uptick in the amount of hotels that we're providing. We're not a shelter, but we do have contracts with hotels in the area. And last year we spent $88,000 in safe places for people to sleep. We provided $71,000 in food and gas last year. And as I look to see who is coming, the demographic of people who are accessing our services, we're all across the board. We have anywhere from somebody who's 4 years old all the way to somebody who was 97 years old last year. But the demographic is like it is nationally. We see the majority of people coming through our doors are between the ages of 25 and 44. As mentioned in the video, we see about 23 people a day. 6 of those people are typically new. They've just found Faces and they're looking for support. And I'm almost done, and then I would love to take questions. We just interviewed a survivor. We interview survivors all the time, but this one I thought was really, it just kind of hit me in the heart the other day. She said, "For the first time, I know that I will not go back to him. I have never been so sure about anything in my life." We know that it takes courage. I think it takes courage to walk through those doors for the first time and to ask for help. And a lot of times I know that they might go back because things get hard. But what I also know is that if they feel safe here the first time, they'll feel safe here the second time or the third time. And eventually they will be able to take that big step, because it's a huge step to leave an abuser. And then lastly, I just also wanted to give you my contact information. I love to bring people around and give them a tour of Faces. I think it's awesome to explain about what we do, but it makes a lot more sense when you come to the building and you see how we work together. I am always so touched when I see a pediatrician, a law enforcement officer, a crisis counselor, and an attorney all talking together about how to keep this individual safe. And it's through one door. It happens in one building, which I don't know about you, but I get inundated with emails. And so we can just work together. It really makes a huge difference, because we can act on it a lot quicker. Does anybody have any questions?
I actually have a question for Sheila. Are you?
Thank you all.
And Paige, you can just cut us all off now.